I'm your host, Joe Archino, and we are produced by Shark Creative and made possible by Entergy Indian Point Energy Center, Hightower, Westchester, White Plains Hospital, Westchester County Office of Economic Development, Robeson, and Accorda Therapeutics, Life Science. And of course, download the Westchester Talk Radio app on iTunes through the App Store at westchestertalkradio.com. And of course, we are here at Scarsdale Ford. It is my great pleasure to have Ken Kraetzer here with me. Now, Ken has been on the program many times. You, of course, know him from covering Army football, Sons of the American Legion Radio. His West Point Football Report on Facebook is a tremendously well-run page. And Ken, I actually invited me. I had the opportunity to cover the Army opener against Rice this season. So, Ken, it's always good to have you on the show, my friend. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, you're doing a great job, Joe, talking to veterans. And I heard you talking about PTSD in your first segment and encouraging veterans to seek treatment and to talk about the issues they face when they come back from deployments and from military service, dealing with transition. And that's so important, what you're doing, having those conversations with veterans.
Thank you, Ken, and I've learned a lot from you and your great media work, and certainly Army football is something on everyone's minds right now, coming off of that game against Michigan. You were there at the Big House for the game, which, you were up in Oklahoma last year for that game, which was a thriller as well. But Ken, a heartbreaking loss in double overtime. But still, I mean, you could see, I'm sure for you being around Coach Monken after the game, you could see how disappointing it had to be, but also how proud he was of the guys for that performance. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I mean, the experience of 111,000 people at a game, and they all thought they were going to leave early in the fourth quarter, and they were there through 2 overtimes, and the sound they made to encourage their defense to make those final plays against Army. If Army went down and scored there, they win the game. And so it was great to see when they did the alma mater at the end of the game, the crowd started cheering USA, USA. And it was really great to see. Yeah, but with everything, Coach Monken's intent was to go out there and win.
Yes.
Not just to show up and not to look good and have a great day. But his intention was to get his team to win, and they came really, really close. I mean, it showed that Army can now play with almost anybody on a given day, really anybody in college football. They showed that against Oklahoma, went to the college football playoff, being in that game, taking that team into overtime. And this Big Ten team, a favorite to win the Big Ten this year, they took them into double overtime, really put the whole Michigan offense back on the drawing board for work. But the players really elevated their game, and Coach Monken has that ability to get the best out of the players he had. I mean, he kept saying before the game that they were going to have to play NFL players. And he would say that none of his players were recruited by Michigan. And he says that every week, but really he and his coaching staff have really been able to elevate the team and the play. The leadership of the seniors on this team that really were a factor. Kelvin Hopkins, the quarterback, who's just a terrific young man, a philosophy major. And he is so smooth running the option offense. And then Cole Christensen, the inside linebacker, Elijah Riley, the safety, who and actually a cornerback. But they both had 13 tackles on the day. And Army played a young defense. We talked to a couple of their players at practice on Wednesday. Kobani Bonzu, a sophomore from Georgia, really established himself as a defensive lineman for Army. And Jeremiah Lowry played very well. And the offensive line for Army really played Michigan tough. And that's kind of the key. We talked last year with Army center Bryce Holland about going out, leading a young team, quarterback, fourth game as a starter, and going out to the line of scrimmage, the first drill, and everybody's uniform on the other side of the field says Sooners on it. Well, it was the same thing at Michigan with those fancy helmets they wear, and seeing those guys and the cheer from the big crowd. But Peyton Reeder and Jackson Deaton on the front line, Jack Sides really did a great job keeping the Army offensive line pushing back the Michigan defense, opening up some holes. Michigan had prepared for Army. Their defensive coordinator, Don Brown, really was talking a lot about how hard it is to top the option offense, and they largely did. They limited Army to about 200 yards of offense on the day, 234 for Army, and that's much less than they've been getting per game. But they made the plays when they did, and the key was the 3 fumbles that they generated in the first half, 2 which led to Army touchdowns. And one was a Cole Christensen play, another by a very good emerging linebacker by the name of Eric Smith. Again, you meet some of these guys, and they look like football players when you meet them, which wasn't always the case with Army in the past. These guys look like they've spent a lot of time in the weight gym to build strength. And Eric Smith, opening drive, ran in from the outside. They did a stunt on a blitz, and he got to the quarterback from the blind side, Shea Patterson, fumbled, and Kobani Bonsu recovered that ball. So Army made the plays. It was just they had an unfortunate play in the third quarter when they got the ball down to 1st and goal from the 1.
The interception in the end zone.
Yeah, well, they did an offside, and everybody wonders, if they had just, gone straight ahead, and kept the option game going. But the coaches all say that you have to pass once in a while to keep the defense
off balance
and keep them from cheating entirely up on the line. And they try to pass play, and it shouldn't have been thrown probably. And Kelvin Hopkins said that afterwards. But they stayed in the game, and at the end of regulation, a 50-yard field goal attempt, just missed. Well, missed by what? It wasn't a good kick. And by the freshman Cole Talley. He's got a very live leg. We've watched him in practice kick 50-yard field goals. And the coach said afterwards that he had some tightness in his leg on Wednesday. But he gave it the shot, and if they'd won, that would have been one of the big upsets of the year in college football.
Oh, it would have been a legendary one. And I think more than anything, you said it best. Army can stand up to anyone. They've shown that at Oklahoma last year, at Michigan this year. Those are powerful statements. It's so tough to lose the way that they did, but to put together those performances were just tremendous. And I think Army, obviously, you look ahead, they still have a great season ahead of them, but they've got to bounce back. They got to get back, and they're on the road again against UTSA today, Ken. What do you expect from Army to battle back today? What do they have to do to get back on track?
Well, they just have to keep playing their game. They were on track last week. The challenge is the disappointment. College players tend to rebound well, and at the end of the day, they could feel good about their performance.
These are soldiers on top of it, so they know how they understand resilience maybe a little bit better than even your average.
Well, they go
player.
through a lot of tough experiences in military training between the cadet basic training and the summer training, and the basic discipline training that they learn at West Point. But last year, after the Oklahoma game, Army, it was the first of 3 straight road games, and they went up to Buffalo, a team that was very competitive in the Mid-America Conference. They've been going to bowl games, and they blew them out. It was like 50-14. I mean, it was over in the third quarter, and Army just trounced them. And then the next week, they went out on the road to California to San Jose State, and San Jose State was a rebuilding team, but Army blew them out. So, they came back well last year, and Coach Munkin is great at motivating. I heard him a little bit at practice, getting him on about, you got to win the fourth quarter, guys. They didn't do that against Michigan. So I think they will do fine. The question is, sometimes when you play a big physical team, how many injuries you took, and how many sore bodies you have on the team. But I think they'll be okay. San Antonio, University of Texas San Antonio, they're playing at the Alamo Dome. People can watch on the NFL Network at 2:30 today. It's a good team. They've been winning. It's about a 9-year-old program, and they've got a very good quarterback who can run the ball, throw the ball. So it's going to be a challenge on defense for Army to stop another good quarterback, and then for the offense to run their game. We'll see. But I'm pretty optimistic they're going to have a strong performance today, and then come back to Michie Stadium next Saturday to play Morgan State.
And I think you laid it all out really well. If it's anything, if last year is an indication, of their response to a loss like that, then I think this year this is a good place to do that and build off of it. But I have to ask you too, Ken, as a reporter, going last year, we had you on to talk about what the experience was like up at Oklahoma, but then to go 2 consecutive years from Oklahoma to then going to the big house in Michigan, was there one that was more memorable, or was it just both a surreal experience, part of your long broadcasting career?
Army's decided to play these games a few years ago, and they've actually gone Penn State, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and then out at Michigan. They'll go out to they have Oklahoma coming in next year, and they'll go out to Wisconsin and Tennessee in this series of games. So, but yeah, Michigan was a tremendous environment. Seeing a little bit of the school, we went out to the pregame with their 1,500 Army alumni at the pregame.
Big crowd.
And then we went up and we found seats in the press box. We were, it's like watching a game from the top of a 15-story building. You need your binoculars, but it's a wonderful place to be. And then you see the stadium, 111,000 bench seats. It's not luxurious. It's a place to go watch a football game, and when you go to your seat, you don't really move, until the game's over. But the Michigan band did a tremendous halftime pregame show, and a wonderful version of the national anthem. And they raised the flag right on the field. They have a flagpole right on the field in front of the bleachers in the end zone. And they had a parachute drop. So it really was tremendous. And at halftime, they did a tribute to World War II veterans, which included I had to look it up, the Aaron Copland music, Appalachian Spring, as a tribute. And they put a large flag out on the field, which was very visually stunning.
I think you posted some pictures of that. What a beautiful image it was.
So they really did a great job. And and it was Veterans Appreciation Day, as it almost always is when Army's on the road. And a lot of the ushers there wore veterans caps. It's very noticeable. And some of them look like they've been doing that job for a long time, older gentlemen and ladies. And quite a few of them had their veterans caps on outside the stadium, or doing their job as ushers or in the stadium. But I actually walked the length of the tunnel. The first time it takes a while to learn the layout, but on the far side is where the locker rooms were, and we went down the tunnel, which is like 50 yards long, to the field, and took in that experience. And then I walked the 96 rows from the field to the top rim, which I was huffing and puffing a little bit.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of video on my YouTube page on Ken Kraetzer if you would like to see that. Great. I mean, it's an iconic place for college football. And because it was a competitive game in overtime, the sound level was intense. I mean, it was some of the sound, like we said, that they make for Ohio State. And so it was a game everybody's going to remember. Army can be very, very proud of their performance. They came up a little short. Jeff Monken will say, well, he was disappointed. He thought he was there to win and tried to win. But everybody at West Point can be very proud of the performance.
No question about it, Ken. And we always tell people you do as good a job as anyone covering. I think you are the best at covering Army football.
There's a few good ones up there. I think of Dean Darling and Rich DeMarco and John Minko is up there.
You're up there with them. I mean, with the amount of the coverage you do and the fan base that you have built, it really is. And we'll see if Army gets back on track against UTSA. But Ken, you keep up the great work, and we hope we can get you back on as we get a couple more games in and break down what's going on with Army football. But Ken, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
And hopefully I'll get down back there with you to see some Army in action. But everyone, that's Ken Kraetzer. I'm Joe Archino.